Hello everybody and welcome back to Mental Health Mondays. It feels like forever since I've sat down and filmed a mental health video. So first of all, I just want to apologise for the noise in the background of this video that you may hear. I live on a very busy street. There's nothing I can really do about it, but it is kind of annoying. Today I have a video for you on BPD. I really want to make more videos of BPD as it's something that I am diagnosed with, and I love talking about it / smashing the stigma around it. So in this video I'm going to go through some indications that you may have BPD and just kind of explain the symptoms / diagnosis criteria. Please note that this video is not a video used to diagnose BPD. It should not be used to self-diagnose BPD. BPD can only be diagnosed by a medical professional. But my hope with this video is that it can help people understand the disorder a little bit better. So when diagnosing BPD, psychiatrists / medical professionals will look at 9 different criteria, and it's worth noting that you only have to tick 5 of these boxes in order to be diagnosed with BPD. You don't have to fit them all. And it's also worth noting that BPD presents itself in very different ways in different people. So number 1 is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. This is heavily linked a lot of the time to childhood trauma, which I will also note that not everyone with BPD has to have gone through childhood trauma. It is just a very common thing. It presents itself a lot with personal relationships, whether that's a romantic relationship or friendships. A lot of the time people with BPD are very hypersensitive to other people's actions, and they may think that someone may be abandoning them or doesn't like them anymore, etc. And then there's this kind of frantic effort to get that person back, and often people with BPD in the initial instance go about it in the wrong way and end up pushing that person further away. I know I've done this in the past. The next one is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships, and this is characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. A lot of the time there is talk around a favorite person. And this can look like someone that is very close to you, that one minute you literally worship the ground they walk on, you think they're the best person in the world, and the next minute they could do something could happen and you could think that they're the worst person in the world. Everything that they do annoys you. Splitting is the more common term that is used to describe this. It's very black and white thinking. This is another thing, is that with BPD there's a lot of black and white. There's a lot of, which I will talk about later, extremes. It's either or, it's this or that. There's no like middle ground, which can be very, very, very difficult to navigate. The next one is unstable self-image or unstable sense of self, and this is a difficult one because obviously a lot of us don't really know who we are and we have conflicting opinions about ourselves all the time. But with BPD, like I said, it can be extremes. So one minute you can think you're the worst person in the world. Sometimes you hate yourself, and then other times you think you're the best thing since sliced bread. But what I relate to with this is an unstable sense of self, in that I would change dramatically who I was around different people, and also growing up I never knew like who I was or where I fit in, and I would just change it constantly, and that would be exhausting. But I did it to seek other people's approval, and again a lot of people do this, you know, anyway. But I think what's worth noting is that people with BPD do things that the average person does, but just to a way, way, way higher level. The next one is impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging, e.g. spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, or binge eating. So a lot of the time people with BPD have real issues within these categories. I know I can definitely tick off a few of them. We do it as kind of a self-sabotage because yes, it feels good at the time, but then you feel like shit later. A lot of the time it's to, you know, block out emotions, etc, etc. The next one is recurrent suicidal behaviour, gestures or threats, or self-mutilating behaviour, which means self-harm. I mean, it goes without saying, a lot of people with BPD are very, very, very depressed. Quite frankly, for me, I didn't want to be on this planet a lot of the time. And a lot of people with BPD also struggle with self-harm, because a lot of the time it is a coping mechanism. It is a reaction to any of these criteria and symptoms that I'm explaining. Self-harm seems to solve it for, you know, a short amount of time. It definitely doesn't solve it in the long run, and I've done a lot of videos on self-harm if you want to go and check them out. The next one is affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. Can you tell that I got this from a medical website? So it says, for example, intense episodic dysphoria, irritability or anxiety, usually lasting a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. So what this means is basically that BPD is like a roller coaster of emotions. That is, I think this for me is one of the main criteria when I talk and when I explain to people that don't necessarily know what BPD is. I talk to them about it being like a roller coaster of emotions. You can be down here 1 minute, up here 1 minute, and then the next second you're down here. This is also what people use to kind of differentiate BPD from bipolar disorder, in that BPD is more condensed and your mood's changing hour to hour, minute to minute, whereas with bipolar it tends to be over longer drawn out periods. It can be a lot to deal with, and that's what therapy is all about with BPD, is what my therapy has been about, in kind of stable, well, and also medication, I might add, stabilizing moods, and also like I said with the black and white, kind of getting used to the grey area in between. The next one is chronic feelings of emptiness. So often a lot of people with BPD may experience this because they might be lonely. I know I cut myself off from a lot of my friends when I was really unwell. It might be linked to sadness, disconnection from the world, we'll talk about that in a second, general dissatisfaction and what the fuck is going on in my life. Really, this is obviously very linked with depression. So depression and anxiety symptoms are two things that are very interlinked with BPD, which is also why it's very difficult to get a diagnosis with BPD, because for me, I was told for years that I had depression and anxiety, but I knew that there was something more, and when my psychiatrist explained these symptoms, I was like, oh my god, that is literally me. The next one is inappropriate intense anger or difficulty controlling anger, e.g. frequent displays of temper, constant anger, recurrent physical fights. Now I will know, when I read this, because I haven't heard about the recurrent physical fight aspect of it, I was a bit like, really? So I would love to know what you think in the comments, because for me, my BPD has only ever been aimed at me, and I think this is one of the massive stigmas that needs to be broken, is that people with BPD are dangerous to other people, because the majority of people with BPD only want to harm themselves and never anyone else, and it's only ever people kind of getting caught in the crossfire. I don't think, to my knowledge, that people with BPD really want to go out and have fights. Obviously, fights could be put under the kind of impulsive acts, and it may, you know, there's always a deeper cause, but yeah, I would love to know, is recurrent physical fights one of the things you struggle with BPD? But when we talk about anger and BPD, I did a whole video on this. It's such a huge thing and a really difficult thing to control, because your anger can get to a level where it becomes uncontrollable and you literally don't know what to do with yourself. And I often talk about a thermometer going from green, you know, yellow, orange to red, and I always say it's so important to be able to stop the anger while it's in the kind of yellow zone before it gets to the red zone, where not many methods are going to really help you get out of it. But it's just general anger at the world, anger at yourself, which can often lead to self-harm, etc. And the final one, number 9, is transient stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms. So essentially what this means is when you're in stressful situations, you get paranoid or dissociate. For me, I can't really relate to the paranoia aspect of it. I definitely do get paranoid, but not to a massive extent. But I know that a lot of people with BPD also suffer with psychosis, which I know paranoia can play a massive part in that. For me, dissociation has been something I've struggled with my BPD. Again, I've done a video on that if you want to go check it out. It's not a nice feeling. It's essentially where you feel like the world around you isn't real. And again, there's loads of different types, but for me, it's where I always give the analogy of being in a bell jar and, you know, watching things go by, or like watching things on a TV screen. Often my body does this when I get anxious, and your brain does it to protect yourself, when actual fact it's not protecting me at all, because I get very frustrated when I'm in dissociative episodes, and then it just makes it worse and worse and worse. But anxiety is heavily linked with this, because obviously if you struggle with anxiety, it thinks that every little thing is stressful, when in actual fact is that it's not, but it misinterprets things as stressful situations in your head. So I really hope that this helped clarify things for you. If you're either struggling with BPD or seeking out a BPD diagnosis, then I'm sending you so much love. It is a fucking hard disorder to live with, but I promise you it is manageable. I'm just here to spread the message that it is possible to get through it and live a happy and fulfilled life. So please give this video a thumbs up if you did like it, and leave me any comments you might have. It means the absolute world to me. Also, please do send in suggestions for any future videos on topics around BPD that you'd like me to do, and I will see you in the next video, which will be next Monday. Goodbye.